So when you start out at property, assuming you've never done it before, often people imply or say that you need to start small. Obviously, everybody has opinions. I often go against the grain, and certainly when I first started in property, I didn't. If we just forget about the chalet that I bought as my very first property in France, even in the UK, I find that when you start to invest, it's all about the area, it's all about due diligence, it's all about how you do it. People assume you need to start small, but actually if you pick up loads and loads of small properties, it's going to be a lot harder if you've got 80, 100, 150, 200 properties to start with. Now you might say, well, we'll just do one to begin with, but actually if I said to you, we've got 4 properties here. We've got a free one in the field and environmental on our back. We've got one that's worth 40,000 and you're going to get £100 profit a month from it. One that's worth 400,000 and you're going to get £2,500 profit from it. And one that's worth 4 million and you're going to get £40,000 profit from it. Now obviously the important word in there is profit. But actually, if the first 2 are no good at all, in my opinion. First of all, the environmental one, you'll end up paying out money. The second one, I wouldn't want you to touch because £100 profit a month isn't enough when you look at interest rates rising, which they will at some stage, and also your boiler bursting. You don't want to pay for a boiler over the next 3 years, and that's what you'll have to do with your profits if they're as low as £100. But also, people assume the £40,000 house is going to be a doddle to purchase. If we forget for a moment the amount of money you have to find in terms of putting that in, so the deposit, yes, of course it's lower. Forget the finding of the money. The actual purchasing of it won't necessarily cost you any less stress, because it might be that the bank value it far lower when they come to do the valuation and it falls out of bed, just in the same way that the £400,000 one might value in lower. So I think that buying houses small to start with isn't necessarily the important thing to do. So a lot of people go out and they do buy-to-lets first. So I'm not one to believe that that's what you've got to do. So I think size isn't the problem. I think in terms of strategy, it's whatever works for your situation. So if you start with no money, well, you've either got to do one of 2 or 3 options. You're either going to do a rent-to-rent, which means you don't need to purchase. However, don't believe for one moment you don't need some money, because for instance, you will have to put 1, 2 or 3 months deposit down for the landlord, okay? Or you may do a purchase lease option, which means again, you don't need to put a deposit down, you don't need a mortgage, but you will need some money probably, okay? Not always. Or you might do a joint venture where you do make a purchase, you do purchase it, but you do it with someone else's money. So I think that to start out in property, don't worry about which strategy should I do because I'm a beginner. It's all about your circumstances, what you can offer, bring to the table, and also your situation financially. You then need to do just loads and loads and loads of due diligence. Due diligence is what it's all about, but you've also got to look at strategy in terms of what rocks your boat. We do not want to be pushing water uphill, doing strategy that we don't like for whatever reason. It might not line up with your values. It's really important to understand that we're looking here at you doing something that is fun. That doesn't mean it will always be easy. But if you're doing something that you don't like, it'll be much harder, I promise you that. So when looking at strategy at the beginning of your journey, don't necessarily think about it in terms of big against small. Look at it in terms of what rocks your boat, what appeals to you, but also what your circumstances are.